Victoria Alice never thought her life would change during a business gala. She was a quiet event planner, focused on details, not parties. But that night, a charming older man named Jack Williams, one of America's most powerful millionaires, walked over to her and said, "You made this night magical." The grand ballroom of the Williams Foundation Gala shimmered like a dream. Golden lights hung from crystal chandeliers, and soft classical music floated through the air. Wealthy guests in designer clothes moved like stars across the polished marble floor. But in the far corner, near the buffet table filled with expensive desserts she'd never dare touch, stood Victoria Alice, a 26-year-old event planner with careful hands and a quiet heart. She didn't belong to their world, not really. She wore a simple navy blue dress she'd bought on sale and had tied her curly brown hair back in a loose bun. Her shoes pinched her toes. Her smile was polite but tired. Her job was to blend into the background and make sure everything ran perfectly. And it did. Every detail, every light, every flower. That's why Jack Williams noticed her. He stood near the balcony doors, tall and confident in his black tailored tuxedo, silver streaks just beginning to show in his thick hair. His blue eyes scanned the room, not for another investor or socialite, but for something real. And then he saw her. She wasn't laughing loudly. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She was adjusting a flower centerpiece that had tilted slightly. It was so small, but so thoughtful. Jack walked across the ballroom, every step drawing eyes and whispers. Victoria felt his presence before she even turned. When she looked up, he was already there. "You made this night magical," he said in a voice deep and warm, like a calm storm. She blinked. "Me?" He smiled, and something in that smile made her heart skip. "Yes, I noticed the lighting over the main stage, the way the candles flicker but don't drip, the gentle scent of vanilla in the air. You thought of everything." Victoria blushed, lowering her gaze. "It's my job." "No," he said softly. "It's your gift." That night, Jack didn't talk to the governor or the tech billionaire. He stayed near Victoria. They stood by the balcony where the city lights sparkled beneath them, like stars scattered across a velvet sky. He asked about her dreams, her life. She told him how she'd been orphaned young, raised by her grandmother in a small town in Texas, how she worked her way through college, how event planning gave her peace, because in a world full of chaos, she could make beauty happen on schedule. And Jack listened. He told her how success sometimes felt empty, how he missed real conversations, simple joys and laughter that wasn't rehearsed. She made him laugh, a real laugh. And she laughed too, not because she had to, but because it felt like the first time in years someone truly saw her. When a slow song began to play, he gently held out his hand. "May I?" She hesitated, then placed her hand in his. They danced, one soft, unforgettable dance. One drink turned into another, one laugh became a shared story, and one moment turned into something far deeper than either of them expected. Later, when the gala ended and the city went quiet, Jack offered her a ride home. But the car ride turned into a conversation that lasted hours, until they found themselves at his private suite at the Williams Hotel. It wasn't planned, it wasn't like her, but it felt right. In that quiet room, lit only by the glow of the city skyline, two lonely souls found warmth. They whispered, they touched, they let go of fear, just for one night. He kissed her gently. She closed her eyes and let herself believe, just for that moment, that maybe life wasn't so cold after all. When she woke up the next morning, Jack was still asleep, one arm wrapped around her waist. She slipped out quietly, leaving a note. "Thank you for seeing me." She didn't write her number. She didn't expect a fairy tale. She told herself it was just one night that gave her heart a reason to beat louder. One night that made her feel like more than just someone who organized flowers and folded napkins. She returned to her quiet life, focused on her job, buried the memory. But 2 weeks later, she felt dizzy. 3 weeks later, her period didn't come. 4 weeks later, the test turned pink. Victoria sat on her bathroom floor, clutching the pregnancy test, her body shaking. It was his. Jack Williams, the untouchable millionaire, was the father. Her breath caught. Her heart pounded. What would he say? Would he believe her? Would he reject her? Or would he remember the night that changed everything? She never meant to see him again. But fate had other plans. The morning sun peeked through the blinds of Victoria's tiny apartment, casting warm stripes across the tiled floor. Birds chirped outside like it was just another peaceful day. But inside, her world had stopped. She stood in the bathroom, still in her pajamas, the cold tile biting at her bare feet. The pregnancy test shook in her trembling hand. 2 pink lines. Not 1. 2. Her chest rose and fell in sharp, panicked breaths. She sat down on the closed toilet lid, staring at the test like it might suddenly change its mind. No, 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 she whispered, gripping it tighter. This can't be real. But it was. She wasn't late by a day or two. It had been nearly 4 weeks. Victoria had been feeling tired, nauseous, and emotional over everything. She cried during a cereal commercial the other day. That wasn't normal. Her body was trying to tell her, but she didn't want to listen. Now the truth stared back in 2 faint but definite lines. She pressed her free hand to her stomach. It felt flat, quiet, still. But inside, life had already begun. Tears filled her eyes. Not just fear, but a deep, aching emotion she couldn't name. A part of her wanted to smile. A tiny, secret joy was blooming. But it was wrapped in panic, tied with fear. She wasn't ready. She was alone. Her rent was 2 weeks late. Her job as an event planner didn't come with insurance, and she had no family to run to. Her grandmother had passed 2 years ago. She was the only person Victoria had ever called home. Now this small apartment was all she had. A sink that leaked, a heater that made clicking noises all night, and a baby on the way. Victoria held the test to her heart and whispered the name she hadn't dared speak since that night. Jack. The name hung in the air like a ghost. His touch had been warm. His voice had been gentle. He had made her feel beautiful, seen. But what now? Would he even remember her? Was she just a kind memory to a man who probably had dozens of women after him? He had called her special. He had looked at her like she was the only one in the room. But people like Jack Williams didn't end up with girls like her. Millionaires belonged to worlds of private jets, luxury hotels, and 10-figure bank accounts. Her world was bills, microwave dinners, and budgeting down to the last dollar. She walked to the mirror, looked at herself. Her eyes were red from crying. Her curls were messy. She didn't look like someone carrying the air of a millionaire, but she was. I'm pregnant, she whispered to her reflection. Saying it out loud made it feel even more real. Her heart ached, not because she regretted that night, but because she had no idea what came next. She sat on the edge of her bed, curling up as memories from the gala played like a movie in her mind. Jack's laugh, the way he looked into her eyes, the way he listened to every word like it mattered. Could she call him? What would she even say? Hi, remember me? I'm pregnant with your child. What if he thought she was lying? What if he accused her of trapping him? She flinched at the thought. Number Jack didn't seem like that. He was kind, gentle, but also powerful, rich, protected. She had no way to reach him directly. No number, no business card. She had no idea how to even begin. Her stomach turned. She didn't want money. She wasn't after his fortune, but the child growing inside her deserved the truth. A father, a name, maybe even love. The next day, she stood in the grocery store, holding a basket of crackers and ginger tea. Morning sickness had started, and it was brutal. Every smell felt too strong, every noise too loud, and still 2 lines haunted her thoughts. Back in her apartment, she searched online. Jack Williams, CEO, billionaire, philanthropist. Dozens of articles, glossy photos, headlines about his investments, his luxury yachts, his dating history. But not a single way to contact him. She sighed and closed her laptop, tears pooling in her eyes again. Maybe fate was cruel. Maybe that one magical night wasn't meant to change his life, only hers. She touched her belly again, softer this time. You're here, she whispered, a single tear sliding down her cheek. And I'll protect you, no matter what. Victoria stood up, shoulders trembling, but a little taller than before. She didn't know what tomorrow held, but she knew one thing. She would fight for her child, even if Jack never knew. Even if the world said she wasn't enough. She would be. She had to be. But fate wasn't finished yet, because while she wrestled with the silence, miles away in a glass tower in Manhattan, Jack Williams couldn't sleep. He stared at the empty side of his bed, thinking about a girl with kind eyes and soft laughter, who slipped away before he could ask her to stay. And soon, their paths would collide again, in a way no one could have expected. Victoria stood in the massive marble lobby of Williams Enterprises, holding her breath. Her palms were cold. Her legs felt weak. Her heart pounded so loud she thought the security guard could hear it. She had almost turned around a dozen times, but here she was, clutching her small purse, wearing her nicest dress, even though it was 3 years old and a little too tight now. "I have to see Jack Williams," she told the guard for the second time. The man in the dark suit raised an eyebrow. "Do you have an appointment?" "No," she whispered, swallowing the lump in her throat. "But tell him it's Victoria, from the gala." He hesitated. She could tell he didn't want to let her through. Girls like her didn't walk into places like this. She didn't belong here, not in a skyscraper with glass elevators and golden chandeliers. But before the guard could speak, his earpiece buzzed. He pressed it, listened, then looked shocked. "You're cleared to go up." Victoria blinked. "Really?" The guard nodded slowly. "He says he'll see you right away." Her knees nearly buckled. As the elevator rose to the top floor, her reflection stared back from the mirror-like walls. She tried to fix her hair, smooth her dress, but nothing could hide the fear in her eyes. What if he hates me? What if he says I'm lying? What if he laughs, or worse, walks away? The doors slid open with a soft ding. Jack's office was enormous, tall windows overlooking Manhattan, sunlight flooding in like gold. And there he stood, Jack Williams, the man she hadn't seen since the night that changed everything. He looked older somehow, sharper in his gray tailored suit, stronger. But when he saw her, his entire face softened. "Victoria?" She stepped forward. "Hi, Jack." A beat of silence passed. Then Jack crossed the room slowly, his eyes searching hers. "I didn't think I'd ever see you again," he said softly. She nodded, unable to speak. "Why are you here?" he asked gently. Her lips trembled. "Because I had to tell you something." He waited, patient, focused, like nothing else existed in the world but her. Victoria reached into her purse with shaking hands and pulled out a folded paper. It was a copy of the test results, the blood work, the truth. "I'm pregnant," she whispered. Jack blinked. "Pregnant. It's yours." Silence. The kind of silence that makes your ears ring. Jack didn't move, didn't breathe. His jaw dropped slightly. Then he took the paper with slow fingers, eyes scanning the test. He looked back at her, right into her soul. "You're carrying my heir?" he said at last. His voice was calm, but his eyes were wide, stunned, almost disbelieving. Victoria's throat tightened. "Yes. Are you sure?" She nodded. "It was only you. That night. I haven't been with anyone else. Ever." Her voice broke at the last word. Her tears weren't just from fear. They were from the weight she had carried alone. Jack stepped back, one hand on the desk to steady himself. He looked like the air had been knocked out of him. But then, something changed in his face. He didn't yell. He didn't ask her to leave. He didn't call her a liar. Instead, he stepped closer. "You're brave to come here," he said, voice low and emotional. Victoria looked up in shock. "What?" "You didn't have to tell me. You could have disappeared, hidden this. But you came anyway." She blinked, a tear falling. "I just thought you deserved to know." Jack stared at her for a long moment, and then he smiled. It wasn't the arrogant smile of a man who had everything. It was soft, real, a smile that held gratitude, awe, a little fear. "You're not alone anymore," he said. Victoria gasped. He stepped even closer, gently placing his hand, just near her belly, not touching, just hovering, as if asking permission. "May I?" he asked, voice hoarse. She nodded. His palm landed gently against her stomach. She was only a few weeks in, nothing to feel yet, but Jack's eyes filled with tears anyway. "My child," he whispered. "Our child." Victoria couldn't hold it in anymore. She let out a shaky sob, and before she knew it, Jack was pulling her into his arms. Strong arms, safe arms. She hadn't been held like that in years. "I don't know what kind of father I'll be," he said into her hair, "but I'm not letting you do this alone." She nodded against his chest. He pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. "I want to be part of this. Every step. I want to support you, care for you. I don't care about what people say. I care about you and the life we created." Victoria couldn't speak. Her heart was breaking and healing all at once. And just when she thought the moment couldn't get more surreal, Jack said softly, "Let me take you home." "But I already have a home," she replied, confused. He smiled. "Then let me give you a second one. One where you never have to be afraid again." Victoria sat quietly in the waiting room of the private clinic, her hands resting on her stomach. It had been 12 weeks. 12 long, quiet, unbelievable weeks. Jack sat beside her, looking completely out of place in his tailored navy blue suit and polished shoes. But he didn't care. His hand never left hers. He hadn't missed a single appointment. He never pushed, never questioned, just showed up every time with that same gentle look in his eyes. "I booked the best doctor in the city," he had told her weeks ago. She had shaken her head. "I don't want your money, Jack." His face had softened. "It's not about money, Victoria. It's about you and our baby." That day she cried, not because she was scared, but because someone finally wanted to take care of her without asking for anything back. Still, she moved back to her little apartment. She kept working part-time. She refused his offers for fancy penthouses and personal chefs. "I just want to do what's right," she told him, "not what's rich." Jack didn't argue. He admired her more with each passing day. When her car broke down, he showed up with a mechanic, not a new car. When she said she was craving cinnamon rolls at midnight, he showed up with flour on his shirt and 2 burnt pastries. He wasn't trying to impress her, he was trying to know her. Now, sitting beside her in the clinic, he looked almost nervous. She noticed. "Are you okay?" she asked gently. Jack nodded. "Just excited and scared." She smiled faintly. "Me too." The nurse called her name. Inside the room she lay back, heart thudding as cold gel spread across her belly. The screen flickered. The doctor's face changed. He leaned in closer to the monitor. Jack leaned forward too. "What is it?" Victoria asked, alarm rising in her chest. The doctor smiled slowly. "Well, it seems we have a surprise." Jack held his breath. "What kind of surprise?" he asked carefully. The doctor turned the screen toward them. "There are 2 heartbeats," he said softly. "You're having twins." Victoria gasped. Her eyes flew to Jack. His lips parted, and then he sat down hard in the chair beside her. "Twins?" he whispered, barely believing it. Victoria looked at him nervously. "Jack?" He covered his mouth with one hand. Then tears filled his eyes. Real tears. I thought I'd never have a family," he said quietly. "I thought I'd live and die alone. And now—" He reached for her hand and kissed it gently. "You've given me 2 miracles." Victoria smiled through her tears. "I'm scared, Jack." He nodded. "Me too. But we'll be scared together." The nurse handed them printed photos of the tiny forms. Jack stared at them like they were treasure maps. But outside the clinic, the real world waited. And it wasn't so kind. The moment they stepped onto the sidewalk, a photographer snapped a picture. Jack pulled her close, shielding her with his arm. That photo went viral the next day. A powerful white millionaire walking beside a modest, mixed-race woman, her belly showing beneath a soft blue dress. People didn't ask for the truth. They made their own. Social media lit up. "Gold digger. She trapped him. What's a girl like her doing with a man like that?" Victoria read the comments with shaking hands. "Jack, they're saying awful things." Jack grabbed the phone and turned it off. "Let them talk," he said firmly. "They don't know us. They don't know you. But they don't care to." she whispered. They see my skin, my clothes. They think I don't belong with you. His voice dropped. Then they're blind, because you're the best thing that ever happened to me. She blinked. I'm not with you for your money, Jack. I know that, he said. You're with me despite it. She looked away, eyes filling with pain. I just wanted to have this baby in peace. Now the world's watching. Jack gently turned her back to face him. Then let them watch, he said, and let them see how I love you, how I protect you, how I cherish the woman carrying my children. Victoria broke. She fell into his arms, sobbing not from sadness, but from feeling loved, really loved, for the first time in years. And in that quiet moment, under the gray sky of a noisy city, Jack whispered, You're not my secret. You're my miracle, and I'll never hide you. The photo went viral overnight. It wasn't a posed picture. It wasn't planned. It was just Jack Williams walking beside Victoria Alice, his hand gently on her back, her baby bump visible under her soft sweater. But to the world it was a story, a scandal. By morning, the internet was flooded with headlines. Millionaire's mystery girl pregnant with twins. Gold digger alert. Who is the woman carrying Jack Williams' heirs? Scandal or true love? Victoria stared at her phone as the comments piled up. She sat alone in her tiny apartment, her phone trembling in her hand. She planned this. Where did she even come from? He must be blind. Another woman chasing a bank account. She's nothing. Victoria's hands shook. Her eyes burned. She turned off her phone and pressed it against her chest. He didn't cry. Not yet. That afternoon, Jack stormed into her apartment without knocking. His face was red, his jaw clenched. He had never looked so angry. I'm so sorry, he said immediately. I should have protected you better. She looked up at him with tired eyes. They don't know me, Jack, she said softly. It's easy to hate someone they don't understand. He knelt beside her. He cupped her face gently. But I know you. I see you. She touched his hand. That's all that matters. But the pain didn't stop. Cameras followed her on her walk to the store. People stared at her belly with judgment. Some whispered, some laughed, some pointed. When she walked into a bakery, the woman behind the counter looked at her and said flatly, You must be her, the girl carrying Jack Williams's kids. Victoria nodded slowly. The woman sighed. People can be cruel, but I hope you're okay. You look like a good one. Those words were rare. They meant the world. Later that week, Jack invited Victoria to a charity gala. She didn't want to go. They'll look at me like I'm dirt, she said. They'll look at you, he replied, and they'll see the woman I'm proud to love. Still, she wore a simple black gown, her hair in soft curls, a quiet beauty. Jack stayed by her side all night, but the whispers floated through the air like knives. She doesn't belong here. He's making a mistake. Is she even educated? Victoria held her head high. She smiled politely. She said nothing, but inside she was breaking. After the event, Jack led her to a private garden outside the venue. It was quiet, peaceful. The stars shimmered above them. Victoria turned away, arms wrapped around herself. I'm tired, Jack. I know. She looked at him with glassy eyes. This world doesn't want me in your life. Jack stepped closer. He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a small velvet box. Victoria's eyes widened. Her breath caught. He got down on one knee, on the cold stone path under the moonlight, and looked up at her. His voice shook. I spent years thinking I only had money, power, emptiness in a big lonely house. Tears brimmed in his eyes. But you gave me more than I ever dreamed of. He opened the box. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, with a tiny diamond that sparkled like hope. You gave me a future, a family, a reason to believe I could be something more than a cold-hearted businessman. He smiled through his tears. Victoria Alice, will you marry me? Her hands flew to her mouth. She didn't speak. She couldn't. Tears fell silently down her cheeks. Jack, you don't have to say yes because of the babies, he whispered. Say yes because you feel what I feel. Victoria finally found her voice. Jack, I never expected love. I was just trying to do what's right. He nodded. And that's why you're the one. She laughed softly through tears. Then yes, she whispered. Yes, Jack. I'll marry you. He held her close, tighter than ever before. And for the first time, the noise of the world faded away. There was no judgment in that moment, only love, only truth. Only two broken people who found healing in each other stood and cupped her face. The sun was gentle that morning. A light breeze danced through the trees. Birds sang softly, as if nature itself had paused to witness a love born through storms. Victoria stood behind the garden arch, her fingers pressed to her growing belly. Her dress was simple, ivory lace that flowed like water over her form. She didn't hide her baby bump. She wore it like a crown. Jack stood under the arch waiting. His suit was elegant, but it was his eyes that shone the brightest. When he saw her walking toward him, he couldn't breathe. Not because of nerves, but because his heart had never felt so full. She walked slowly, every step full of quiet pride. She wasn't the frightened girl from months ago. She was a woman now, a mother, a bride, a fighter, and Jack saw all of it in her eyes. Tears welled in his. He didn't try to hide them. As she reached him, he took both her hands and kissed them gently. You are the miracle I never deserved, he whispered. The officiant smiled warmly. Jack Williams, do you take Victoria Alice to be your wife, your partner, your equal, in joy and in hardship? Jack looked into her eyes. I do, he said without hesitation, with every beat of my heart. And do you, Victoria Alice, take Jack Williams, just as he is, to walk beside him, love him, and build a family together? Victoria's voice trembled, but her words were clear. I do, and I always will. They exchanged simple rings, then a kiss that sealed every promise they had made since that first night, when laughter turned into fate. There were no reporters, no flashing cameras, just truth, just love. After the ceremony, Jack whispered, This is the beginning, Victoria. Not the end, she smiled. It already feels like home. Months later, the world changed again. In a quiet hospital room, Victoria screamed through tears as Jack held her hand. You're doing amazing, he whispered, brushing her hair from her sweaty face. The doctor smiled. Here they come. And then, a cry. One soft, strong cry. Then another. Twins. A boy with Jack's nose and Victoria's deep eyes. A girl with Victoria's curls and Jack's dimpled chin. Victoria sobbed. Not from pain, from joy. Jack cradled both babies in his arms, one on each side. He looked down at their tiny faces. Then up at Victoria, who watched him from the hospital bed, exhausted but glowing. Thank you, Jack whispered. For what? She asked, her voice hoarse. For carrying my children, for choosing to keep them, for choosing me. He leaned over and kissed her forehead. You gave me everything, a family, a home, a reason to believe in love again. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. And you gave me safety, she said softly. You gave me a name no one can steal from me. He sat beside her, held her hand, and for the first time in years, they both felt whole. They named the boy Elijah and the girl Hope, because Elijah meant strength, and hope was what had carried them through the fire. Weeks turned to months. The world kept talking. Some people still stared, some still whispered. But Victoria no longer felt small. When people looked at her and called her names, she held her head high. She had 2 babies in her arms and a husband who adored her. She had built something bigger than hate. She had built a home. Jack stood by her side in every storm. He never let go. He never apologized for loving her. He taught the world that love doesn't follow rules or traditions. It simply happens. And when it's real, it fights back. They raised their twins in a world that didn't always understand, but they filled that world with kindness, with warmth, with stories of strength and unity. And every time someone asked, how did you two end up together? Jack would smile and say, she changed my life with a whisper and gave me everything I never knew I needed. Love doesn't check skin color. It doesn't care about wealth or status. Love is built on truth, courage, and choosing each other again and again. Victoria and Jack proved that a broken world can still bloom with hope if we let love lead the way.